The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by the Clean Power Consulting Group. You can find all of our content at cleanpower.group and click on the podcast link, click on the YouTube icon. Please follow our YouTube channel, hit that bell so you get notifications, and subscribe to us on Apple and Spotify and any other audio player you like. And please give us a rating and a review. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, the sun never sets on customer experience. My guest today is Scott Nguyen. He is the CEO and founder of a software company called Bodhi. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tim. Thanks for having me.
We met at RE Northeast. Well, we sort of met at RE Northeast. I met one of your team members, and great to be back at the trade show circuit face to face. And I learned about Bodhi, and you guys are tackling a somewhat of a hairy problem for the solar industry, and that is how consumers interact with the industry. But tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and why you started Bodhi.
Yeah, so I've been in the energy industry my entire career. I actually have a PhD in physics that I got a while back, and because of my background, it's always been more on the sciencey hardware side of the industry. And then what was interesting for me, and really kind of leads to Bodhi, is about 5-6 years ago, I put solar in my house here in Austin, and that was a pretty big eye-opening experience because, coming from my industry, I always thought of solar as being, been around for a long time, state-of-the-art technology. I'm buying into this new energy transformation. And so I had really high expectations. And then so when I went to look to go solar, to find out who to go with, and then even after I signed the contract and waited for the installation commissioning process of it, it was a relatively disappointing experience. And so what was interesting was I had high expectations, and I get met with a pretty, let's say, relatively arcane, immature, home services business. And that disconnect in those expectations really led for me, as a consumer, a lot of frustration. And then as I talked to my solar company about a lot of others that are in this situation, that actually leads to a lot of operational headaches. And so what we felt was a gap in the industry after talking to a lot of homeowners, a lot of the industry. What we realized was that the industry's really been good at selling solar. They've really been good at installing solar, but they haven't yet figured out how to really deliver that digital experience that their customers now expect. Especially as this industry's moved from those highly tolerant early adopters into more of the mass consumer. And this mass consumer era is really folks who are different from what they were 5 years ago. All of us are being conditioned by the tech companies like, let's say, Amazon, for example, or Netflix or Uber, where we want everything on demand. We want hyper personalization. And so when you're buying, a consumer's buying a tens of thousands of dollar project, what should their experience be? What are they expecting? And then what is the industry delivering? And so that's why we formed Bodhi. Bodhi was there to really try to focus on the customer experience, on the user experience, and really be able to deliver that digital experience that customers are now expecting. But in the process of doing that, can we also take that extra step in trying to cultivate that relationship between people and the energy that powers their lives? And so we started Bodhi about 4 years ago. We launched the product in August of 2019, and now we're helping solar companies across the U.S. along with one international customer.
Very good. Well, congratulations for getting the traction that you have. And for anybody who wants to know how to find you, you just go to bodhi.solar, bodhi.solar, and then you can check that site out. Tell us about, I get it that you're there for consumers, but you're signing up solar installers first and foremost to use the platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is your buyer per se. And what has that journey been like? Because solar companies use all different kinds of software, from very crude spreadsheets to, Salesforce, very sophisticated CRMs. And how has it been for you to kind of get your foot in that door?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because we are very much customer focused in how to deliver good customer experiences. And what I would say is, in general, this industry, I think it's solar. I mean, solar is a big industry, but it's still pretty immature. And when I say immature, what I'm referring to is that there just haven't been a lot of tools and other services that have been available that have been specific for solar. And so we've been, for the most part, the industry has been cobbling together a lot of disparate generic software tools, for example, and try to cobble it together so that it works for them. But that doesn't really work so well. So in the past 5 years or so, we've seen a large mix of new software that's been designed specifically for solar. And the companies that understand that for them to grow from these smaller regional solar companies to those that are bigger and bigger going across state lines, they can't just continue to add people to their staff and be able to realize any economies of scale. They understand that software will be the key. The problem has been that attempts in the past to try to adopt software for their business haven't always been a success. So what's happening now is that what we had to do is come in and be able to provide guidance on how to really think about software into improving business operations. So we're a big proponent of what we call the solar software stack, which is how does a stack of multi-layers or multi-types of software, if you're able to build a stack of these different types of tools that are key characteristic is that they're able to communicate to each other. And second, they're really good at what they're doing. How can this stack be really, really beneficial to the solar company? And so for us as Bodhi, what we say is that, you may be using Salesforce as your CRM. That could be the backbone of your software stack, but you'll need other tools as well. And so anything that might be digitally facing or consumer facing on the digital front, Bodhi can be that layer in that software stack that becomes that digital interface between that solar installer's business and their staff and their homeowner customers.
And what is the process like for an installer? Walk us through. Let's say they resonate with the concept, but then there's the practicality of getting on board with a new platform that has to plug into a a Salesforce or
Mm-hmm.
a Zoho or a HubSpot or a NetSuite or an Asana or Microsoft, just to name a few. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
many platforms that you list on your website as integrations, quote unquote. What are the customers, what are the installers dealing with there?
Yeah, so there is definitely an onboarding process because what we're doing is we're going to integrate across their operational tools, not just the CRM project management tools, but their documents like Google Drive, Dropbox, or if they're keeping documents in Salesforce, but also their field apps they're using, for example, Site Capture or Device Magic, but also the monitoring system. So what we're doing is these are the tools that their operations are using. What we're doing is then be able to pull data from all of the different disparate sources so that we can bring a highly produced type of interaction and engagement with the consumer that's highly polished. One of the things that we definitely abide by is we don't want to show the customer how the sausage is made. To do that effectively is to really think about and interact with the solar company and their various folks in there from across the operations to understand what their workflow is. And it turns out that the technical part of the integration is actually for us now the easy part. That's part of our secret sauce and part of one of the patents that was issued in February of last year. The part that is definitely very nuanced, and this is where no solar company is the same. And so what we do is we are able to come in and understand what their workflow is like, work with them to map those over to what they would like to present to the customers. And so we have a kickoff meeting. We go through a technical components of the integration, but then it is then working, consulting with them on the actual content that then is developed to interact with their customers. That entire process normally lasts 3 to 4 weeks. And so from kickoff to launch is generally about 3 to 4 weeks. It isn't very long, but what the key thing that we want to do is to make sure that Bodhi is highly customizable. So we want to make sure that Bodhi is configured and customized to match that solar company's operational workflows and their voice. I mean, the product itself is white labeled and branded for the solar company. We also want them to be able to represent the way that they like to speak to their customers. And so we work with the customers, and probably within a month from kickoff, the product is live.
Cool. What are some of the value propositions that you offer to solar installers?
Yeah, so I think you can think about the value proposition. I was speaking with Mike Gilroy, the CEO of SunGauge, and he described our value proposition in these 3 rings. And I think it's the best description. Also, I'm going to steal that from Mike. So at the core of this ring is all about automating the customer engagement. How are we able to provide customers information that they're interested in knowing, but in a way that is reducing all the operational headaches, all the kind of the tedious, repetitious actions that the project managers or the customer support staff might be doing. And so we're automating really that customer engagement. So that is at the core. And we're able to deliver about a 25 to 50% reduction in customer support costs from there. Then in the second ring of our value proposition is really about when you give someone a really good customer experience, the result of that are better reviews, better Google reviews, and more referrals. And so our customers have reported a 30% increase in referral rates with Bodhi than without Bodhi. And then lastly, this kind of third ring is about what are the opportunities that are there for the solar company beyond that initial sale of that solar system. What are those opportunities for follow-on products? Because what's interesting was, the industry is moving away, and homeowners are the same. They're moving away from this single transactional approach to knowing that as more and more energy products become available, the consumers are going to want these too. And so that first sale of the solar system ends up being a gateway into more products and services that can be sold to the same homeowners. These are from batteries, EV chargers, and now starting services. And so a solar company can start thinking about their customers rather than just a single, costs or the value of one cell, but it's more about lifetime customer value. And the key question in realizing that is, does the customer remember the solar company? Because it's kind of interesting. I was talking to a homeowner not too long ago, several months ago, and she had 2 homes. She put solar on both homes. And the first time she went with Tesla, had a horrible experience. And so the second time she went with a local solar company. She said it was a great experience, but she couldn't remember who that solar company was. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of the bane to the in the industry. We have really high customer acquisition costs, anywhere between from $3,000 for the smaller companies, and, Sunrun is reporting over $5,000 on customer acquisition costs. And as a fraction of the total system price, it's rising. And so when you think about it that way, we've gone through so much trouble to acquire, to build that customer relationship. And then after the sale is done, you kind of lost it. And so you miss out on potentially half of the total lifetime customer value as estimated by Sunrun on those after installation opportunities. And so that's the third value proposition, the third ring of that value proposition that we offer.
Yeah. So you might sell them a solar array today, but then sell them a battery and an EV charger tomorrow.
Or, yes, or in addition, you've got also expansion of the solar systems. A lot of customers these days. It was interesting. Here's another one of our other customers, Lighthouse Solar. They're our first customer right off the bat, and they're here in Austin. They've been around now 12, 13, maybe 14 years. And throughout the time, they had never re-engaged with their customers. And so we helped in that process. And when we did that, the customers were coming back to us and said, "Oh yeah, I remember Lighthouse. They were great. I've had my systems 5 years, maybe 10 years now. What do I have to do to it? Do I have to clean my panels? Like, it's been a while. Wait, what about all these batteries I keep on hearing about?" So the consumers themselves, they're what we like to call at Bodhi a new energy consumer. So as more and more energy products do become available to the consumer, they're going to want these too. They're going to want to optimize the performance of the system that they currently built, but also as the price of the panels do come down, become more affordable, they're going to say, wait, I could only cover 50% of my system 5 years ago, 50% of my energy usage 5 years ago. Maybe I should expand to cover 100%. Maybe I have to now expand to cover that EV that I just purchased. And so those opportunities are huge, along with the fact that if you have a good experience, you're going to get referrals. And referrals are just much, much more effective than cold leads in this industry.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Clean Power Hour or viewing it on YouTube. We do have a great YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, please go to cleanpower.group and hit that YouTube icon and subscribe to our channel. Of course, you can find all of our content on your favorite audio platform as well. So please give us a rating and review. I wanted to let you know that we are partnered with the Midwest Solar Expo this year. Check it out, midwestssolarexpo.com. You can get a 15% discount with our code, which is CPH15. We will also put that in the show notes, CPH numeral 15. The Midwest Solar Expo is the premier B2B solar and clean energy event in the region. It hosts over 450 clean tech executives from around the country, and it's a lovely event in Minneapolis, June 20th to 22nd. So please check it out. Back to the show. And so if I'm a Lighthouse Solar, shout out to Stan Pipkin, a great company there in Austin. That's cool that you're working with them. If I'm Lighthouse and okay, I've got so many customers and I'm using Bodhi, and then my customers had a good experience because they have a nice, app on their phone that told them, here's how the project is progressing. This is when the materials are going to arrive. This is when you're going to get your permit, blah, 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 right? The Amazon and Netflix, as you mentioned in the opening, experience that we've all come to expect, something that's customized to me and lightens my psychological load in some way, right? And takes out all or many of the unknowns that we deal with in the home improvement marketplace. But how does Bodhi then effectively become a go-to, kind of like a Nextdoor, which is a social media app for neighborhoods?
Mm-hmm.
How does Bodhi work on behalf of Lighthouse and the consumer to ensure that it's a win-win and the consumer's getting what they want, but Lighthouse is also getting referrals and Google ratings?
Yeah, for sure. So what's important is a couple of things. So the first is what we need to do is think about it from the customer's perspective. They have questions, and so we need to answer those questions. And the big question that Bodhi is trying to help answer from contract throughout the 25-year life of that system or 25-year life of that customer relationship is, what's going on with my solar? So during the installation commissioning process, the question that we're trying to answer is, what's the status of my project? Customers are always asking that question, really wanting to know when the install date and when the system has been installed, when can we actually finally power the system on? When the system is then energized, the question becomes, how is my solar doing? Am I actually getting everything the production that I'm expecting? And so what Bodhi does during So during that installation commissioning process, we've integrated with the CRM and project management software, and now we are then able to communicate the status of the projects, but a lot of other information about that helps to educate the homeowner and prepare them for going solar. When the system is then powered up, we integrate with the monitoring platforms that are installed with the panels themselves. These are Enphase, SolarEdge, AP System, all the different platforms from the inverters, but also third-party monitoring systems like eGauge and Sense. And the key question that we're answering and engaging with them is, how is the system performing, and is there any issue? For the most part, these systems run fine. And what's interesting is that we have algorithms in place that will let customers know that the systems are running fine, from monthly reports to relative days when there have been recent highs. Because the key thing is these systems are on top of the roof. And so a lot of times with consumers, it's out of sight, out of mind. And so how can you continue to engage the customers effectively in not a very spammy, heavy-handed way, but how can you just remind them that they're getting everything that they're expecting? And that's how Bodhi is engaging with them. And if a customer then remembers that the company like Lighthouse, oh yes, I just got this report from Lighthouse that I saved $125 last month. There are 3 homeowners in my neighborhood that also went solar with Lighthouse. Next time I have that conversation with the other neighbor, who might say, oh, I saw you've got solar panels on the roof. Can you tell me more about it? A homeowner can then that same Lighthouse homeowner can pull out the Bodhi app and be able to say, yeah, when you take a look, I've got a 6.5 kilowatt system. These are all Mission solar panels made just down the road in San Antonio. And I'm saving over $1,000 every month. That neighbor is now much, much more inclined to go and get additional information from Lighthouse. And then that can be all facilitated through Bodhi itself. And so what we're doing that's key for Bodhi and our approach is we are appealing to that intrinsic motivation for that homeowner to go solar in the first place and trying to make sure that they get a good experience. And then from there, it's human nature to want to talk more about it, especially as someone has a good experience and excited about solar, which, most homeowners are.
Yeah. And, it is interesting because solar is generally a one-off, and it's going to last for 30 years. And so you want to set it and forget it. And SolarEdge has a great monitoring platform, and it's very, mobile friendly. I guess is Bodhi taking the approach of, okay, we're going to proactively ping our customers on a monthly basis and give you some kind of a scale, good, bad, ugly. You probably need to consider washing your panels or something like that. Is it getting into the analytics side of performance monitoring?
Yeah, so we're taking those in steps, and so we do have monthly energy reports along with periodic, recent highs and also recent and poor performance alerts in between. And from there, we are letting homeowners know, but also letting the installers know how the systems are doing. And so when there has been poor performance or the systems are down, the first people to get alerted actually are the installers. And so, kind of reminds me of one of those interesting things. There was one of our customers this was, I think, last year, one of our customers in the Northeast, I got this email from them, or I got a text message from the owner. And the owner was like, hey, I just got this recent high alert from Bodhi, but then my other app, one of the inverter apps, said that I was having low performance. Hey, what's going on? And in my mind, when I'm reading this text message as the CEO owner of Bodhi, I'm thinking, oh crap, something's wrong with our algorithms. But when we started diving into the details, understanding what happened, well, what happened was that there was a snowstorm in that area just a few days before. And what Bodhi did correctly and what the other company did not do correctly the monitoring platform didn't do correctly were two things. First off, we were correctly able to identify that there was a snowstorm. So there was no low performance alert in the first place. Second, and then when the snow did melt, we do have our what we call these these recent high alerts. So when the snow did melt and the system started producing again, homeowners got alerted that their system was up and running. They had a recent high. So that helps to reaffirm that systems were performing fine, even though there was a snowstorm. The second thing that we did correctly is we always notify the installer first. What happened with the other platform was that, one, they didn't identify that was a snowstorm. And then second, they notified all the customers, all the homeowners first. And so a false alarm then caused even more headaches to the solar installer and their service department. And that, I think if you talk to a whole bunch of all the different service departments, they're going to say that that's a scenario they do not like having to deal with.
Yeah. So let's step back for a second, Scott. If you could fix something about the solar industry, you mentioned early in the show, or maybe this was in the pre-show, I can't remember now, that the costs of customer acquisition are going up, and so solar installers are feeling pain there. Consumers are paying for it because they have to pass the cost on to the consumer in order to stay in business. And meanwhile, here in the U.S., residential solar costs almost twice what it does in Germany and Australia. Because of the soft costs, our permitting is more cumbersome, for example. And so what is the holy grail for the solar industry as you see it, and where is Bodhi going to the rescue?
No, so it is exactly like you said. We currently are bottlenecked, and so we're bottlenecked by these soft costs. And so it's customer acquisition costs, but it's also some of the other parts, the project management to the permitting, all these extra hurdles that are really driving soft costs. So I think right now it's been estimated that soft cost constitutes about 65% of the system price in residential solar. Customer acquisition is about a little bit over 21% or so of that system price. And when we think about what we're really trying to solve is the fact that what we really want is to have a much greater, much faster adoption of solar if we're going to try to address climate change. And what's key is that price is one big driver. And because what's interesting about solar, it's a consumer product. And so it inherently has some of the interesting levers that allows for really rapid solar adoption. However, if you have relatively high prices, and then second, you have poor customer experiences, you're not able to really capitalize on those extra levers that a consumer product has. And so if we really want to usher in the second wave of wide-scale solar adoption, then we need to focus on both being able to address some of those soft costs, but if we're able to improve the customer experience, that will help itself drive down customer acquisition costs and allows us to get into that exponential rise of an exponential scale of adoption that we need to address climate change.
Mm-hmm. And how expensive is your platform? How hard a sale is it to get new customers?
I mean, I think so what we are having to do is what we do in our sales process is we talk about their business operations and their processes and see if they would like to help to automate and streamline their operations from the project managers, the customer support, from contract through PTO. And we ask the questions, hey, do you have project managers who are stressed out? Are they working on a Sunday night trying to catch up by sending emails out, the same redundant emails? and other types of communication? Are they making those phone calls? How long do they actually spend talking to customers? And once we understand that, we definitely understand like, okay, then are they feeling the pain that Bodhi can address in this core value that I've kind of mentioned? And of course, everyone's like, yeah, I want better reviews and more referrals. But at the heart, will they benefit from automating a lot of the customer experience so that their current staff is able to deal with more complicated projects, more demanding customers? And once we were able to have those types of conversations, we're able to have very strong supporters at the solar company to make the sale. I mean, one interesting thing was about, probably several months ago, one of our customers out of the blue just called us up and said, hey, he was really giddy about it because he said, we're about to do, I think about 20% more in revenue this year without having to add anyone to the operations staff. And that was primarily due to Bodhi. And so that's kind of an example of how we're able to to deliver real value back to the solar company on the operations cost side.
Cool. Well, what else should our listeners know about the platform, and how can they reach you?
Yeah, so they can easily reach me my email is scott@bodhi.solar. I'm also on LinkedIn. You'll see some various kind of random posts that I normally do on LinkedIn. So you can find me and direct message me there. And the other thing about the platform is that what we're here for is to deliver, help solar companies deliver amazing customer experience, really be able to meet their customer expectations, but in a way that works for that solar company, their operations team. And so I love talking to solar installers. I love talking to our customers. I love talking to those that are not. And we're going to be at the NAPSIP conference, I think next week down in Phoenix, Arizona. So if your folks are there, it'd be great to talk to them. We also will be at various shows, including SPI this year. So it's going to be exciting.
Excellent. Well, you can find all of our content at cleanpower.group. Click on the podcast tab, click on the YouTube icon, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is the way more people will find this content and learn about all the good things going on in clean energy. And please give us a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but the audio is available on all the major audio platforms. And reach out to me. I love hearing from my listeners. I love getting ideas for topics and speakers you'd like us to cover on the show, either on the News Roundup on Thursdays or in these one-on-one interviews. Cleanpower.group. I'm Tim Montague. I want to thank you, Scott Nguyen, for coming on the show. Let's grow solar and storage.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Tim.